my definition of resilience probably is don't take failure and not getting what you want immediately personally. To say, I deal with truths and realities. The reality is you can't always be on top. The truth is you'll eventually get back on top. And resilience is understanding truths and realities. When you're feeling down and like, am I really the best? I'm not sure I can do this. To say, what is reality is? The reality is not everyone's going to be perfect all the time and win all the time. What's the truth?
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Lessons from the Game. I'm super excited about tonight's guest. We've got Omar Mouneimne, I hope I'm saying that correct, brother, with my co-host, Ben Pegner. Guys, how are you guys doing? Ben, Omar, how's it going?
Yeah, lekker, but thank you. Very, very well. Very well. In France at the moment, and it's going well, really well.
Great to hear that. Lekker, I missed it.
I miss saying it.
Ben, how are you doing? You've been doing a bit of traveling for this day, eh?
Yeah, it's been good though. But yeah, a bit of coaching. Today I was in London. I wasn't in Sheffield in the end. It's been a lot of snow. It was -6 overnight, so I was meant to be up in Sheffield for the day. But yeah, so heading up there next week instead. But all good, excited as well. I was just reminiscing about what seems like yesterday, but also doesn't seem like it happened at all. You know, when I first met Omar a few years down the line. So looking forward to chatting and getting into all the lessons from the game.
Awesome stuff. And for our audience who's watching or listening, as we've mentioned before, we're still building the show. We're still growing. We're going to make mistakes, blunders. Who cares? Who gives a crap? We're here to have some fun. And we are really excited to be speaking tonight, Omar. You have an unbelievable coaching career. You coached at my arch nemesis, the Stormers, a team that I really, really hate.
But now I'm speaking to you, mate. I had second thoughts about speaking to you, Gato. I swear to God.
And Omar, you've had an unbelievable coaching career. You started very young. You started back in the day with the Springbok Sevens, then on to the Stormers, Western Province, Italy. Spent some time with Italy, Edinburgh, Lyon, Sharks, Stade Francais, Worcester Warriors, Bristol Bears, Exeter Chiefs. Man, you're missing a few more teams there. You need to get going. But
give me to Larissa. Yeah, complete the circle.
Who knows? Who knows? Now, obviously, we've got loads that we want to get stuck into, and I know Ben is eager. He's like a little geek freaking out over technology. He's waiting to ask the rugby questions. But yeah, just man, how's things going? How's life been going your side?
Yeah. Look, things have been good. I obviously finished up with Exeter Chiefs 6 games into my third year with them, which is it's never happened to me before. But these, it's part of the game, part and parcel of the realities of the game. Sometimes these things happen, and you move on at different times. Since then, I've been working on a couple of nice things, consulting for a few teams. At the moment, I'm in France, helping Romania for the World Cup qualifiers. So I'm in camp with them for 2.5 weeks, helping them get prepped on D, just trying to top up some D ideas, help them technically and tactically. And then they'll play 3 qualifying games and hopefully they qualify. That's in the pipeline for now. And I've got a couple of other things on the horizon. But it's been good. It's been a nice time to reflect and get out the trenches for 5 minutes,
Okay, awesome. And yeah, a lot of people don't realize the pressure that we experience as coaches. And, when you're in high performance, the stakes are high as well. And the results are not there. It's not always that easy. But we're going to chat about that in a bit. I skipped a step. The question we normally need to ask our guests as they are coming on: what is the biggest lesson of the game of rugby that you have learned and that you could share with the audience? I know there's loads of them, but what is one lesson that stands out for you?
One lesson for me categorically is it's not about you. It's always about other people. And if you take interest in other people first every single time, and I mean that, you'll go further, quicker. And, you make it about other people, you take interest in other people. It's actually very, very hard to not be about yourself and to want to put your ambitions onto people and to want to put your ideas onto people. If you take a step back and take an interest into someone, in someone, and actually listen to them and ask them key factor questions and absorb what they're saying to you and be energized from what they're saying to you, not just what you want to tell them. I think that's the most powerful thing I've learned from rugby. Initially, you always want to tell people, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm up to, etc. I learned that if you go and put it on someone else first, what's going on for them? What's on their mind? How are they feeling about things? What do they want to get done? And actually pay attention to that. I think you go further faster.
Yeah. No, and the great thing is what I like about your journey. I was like, we see in France, and I've spoken about this on a previous podcast. often we see former players going into that coaching role here. They kind of believe in that, keeping the identity of the club. We've seen it with Toulouse, with Hugo Mola, Patrono, and even David Millet, Virgil Lacombe. And we're also seeing it at La Rochelle. We got Roman Carminiani, Sebastian Bubul. We got a few former players that are involved with the club. And if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me, you did not play at the highest level, but you managed to coach at the highest level. But before you got that opportunity, man, you had some tough times. I know you were in business, you were growing up in some tough areas. Is there any insights you can give to us about it, about how you grew up, how you battled it through those tough times and actually getting to where you are now?
Yeah, look, I mean, we didn't have luxuries when I was young. We didn't have a lot of money at all. The type of sort of upbringing was you couldn't go to a movie and watch a movie. You couldn't get popcorn and Coke. You couldn't go to like a shopping center, a shopping mall, and have a Steers hamburger and chips and play like token games for, like the arcade games. There was no money. In fact, I got a job early on. I was 11 years old when I worked in a Clicks, which is like a Boots, as a cashier and then as on the photo lab, because I was just so tired of being told there was no money for anything. So I generally got stuck into working hard and realizing that just no one can save you. You just got to do what you got to do. No one's interested in your sob story. What they're interested in is, can you come to the party with something or not? Your mates want to know, can you come to the movies or not? Do you have the cash or not? You don't. Well, we're not going to hang out with you. So my upbringing was tough in that sense, but it stood me in good stead because I didn't play at the highest level. But like any crazy South African boy, I played from 4 years old. I played club rugby till about 26, 28 years old. Obviously, I'm a small dude, but so I played against some big SAFA boys. You can imagine, my school, we used to play against the B and C teams of Paul Roos and these guys, but they were monsters. So, I had to be adaptable. I played a lot of rugby. And rugby turned pro before I would have even had a gap to play anyway. So, those lessons stood me in good stead for when I knocked on doors to get into pro rugby, because I knocked on doors for a long time to get in as a coach.
That's awesome, Omar. I've just suddenly thought of something. G and I often talk about, when we're trying to help players, we say, look, identify your strengths and know what your strengths are, and then amplify your strengths, because then the coach will select you for what you're good at. Don't worry so much about what you can't do, but know what you're really good at. And it just occurred to me as a coach, straight away it comes across that you know exactly who you are, what you're good at, what you bring to the party. And do you think that's a fair summary?
Yes, I do. And I think that's important. And I agree with you. I think we all have got our shadow side and things we want to work on. But if you don't have your superpower, which inevitably will become your weakness, if you don't have your superpower and you actually can feel it and taste it at your fingertips, if you don't know that when you walk into a room, there's something specific that people are going to notice about you, they're going to say, something about your tonality, something about your insight, something about you is a little bit different and unique, and I want to pay attention to you. If you don't have that about you, then you're just a robot, And so, I like to believe that I've got an identity in that sense, yeah.
Yeah, it's really clear. It's really good to see. And it gives confidence, doesn't it? It gives them like an assuredness that you feel, okay, I know what I'm doing here. And, I was just reminiscing the other day with G. I first met you in 2009 when I visited the Stormers, and we were...
That word again.
Don't say Stormers, Catherine.
I was in Cape Town and... You get over it, man.
Right.
I got it.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what it would have been like if he hadn't won anything there as well? He'd
be really upset.
Yeah. But, you were in an incredible environment there, and from the outside, and I guess with the benefit of hindsight as well, when you look at, you had Rassi, you had Brendan Venter, you had Alistair Garcia, you had et cetera, that must have been an amazing sort of incubator for you at that time.
It was incredible. I think it was 2007, 2008. Rusty asked to see me because he heard of some of the work I was doing with the Springbok Sevens. And I was really blessed. And because the technical sort of, let's put it this way, I got my school of rugby through Rusty, because although he brought me in for work rate, collisions, be square, dominate the defensive breakdown, blah, 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 I got an education there because he's such a genius technically. He's so good at big picture and what underpins it. Brendan obviously is passionate, got a lot of good details. Jacques was very talented. Nina Harper was very talented. And everyone was pushing each other there. So, I said to people before, we'd go into the high performance gym and there would be the mats, like the dojo mats. we talk about an hour and a half how to place the ball. What's the benefit of falling down on your chest, then placing long? Is it too narrow? What if I prawn? What if I do this and that? We do that about tackling. We do that about folding. And so that environment was so challenging on what is the answer and never stay still. And then all the stuff around frameworks, like, okay, that's fine. You made that statement. How are you going to back that up? How are we going to do that consistently? What template would you use to roll that out consistently? And Rusty just made you think. Now, he would never give you information. We'd challenge and we'd respect and we'd write things up. And at the end of the day, it was up to you. Take it in or don't take it in. And one of the most beautiful things, and I don't know, I think I did tell Rusty this. He used to write on the flip charts all the time. And at the end of every single day, I used to leave about 7 o'clock at night, get in at 6, leave 7. And I'd take the flip chart, each page, and I'd fold it up. I'd take it home. I'd make my own notes. I made manuals and stuff. And every time he said something, I'd write it down. And, that's just one of those things. You just had to do it. And so blessed to have been under him, mate. Like, honestly, he taught me the craft of rugby. Like, one thing that stands out about a guy like Russ is when he speaks, it's like a different sport. And that inspired me, technically, tactically, on point, methodical, make it make sense. And so blessed, mate. That was huge in my development.
That's incredible. I mean, so many lessons there. I mean, there must have been so many lessons for you there, just with that environment and Gary Gold as well. And,
Gary was it too. I've got videos with him together doing stuff outside. It's just, Gary Silver, let's go, G. Good man.
But, you're touching base. I think it's great that you were like, you were obsessed about learning the game. All right. You were writing it down, and we tried to emphasize players, taking notes during meetings. And it's so important that, when I grew up in South Africa, like, we watched rugby. Every single game you almost watch the whole, like, even when I was retired, I would spend the whole day watching rugby. At this stage, my missus said, seriously, I thought you're done with rugby. Now you're spending the whole day on the couch watching morning game. But that's who we are. And I think players today, the younger generation, they underestimate the power of being a student of the game. In your mind, compared to players you worked back then, what's the massive generational change?
It's a difficult one to answer because in some ways, guys are more robotical and you just told them stuff, in some ways. And was that good? Yes, they humbled themselves under the system and they just did what they were supposed to do. So that's a trait. Just like anything, you come into a system, until you can master things, you can't be like giving too much feedback, right? So like you talk about leadership, when you're not mature and ready enough and you in your infancy stage of competence, you should just make notes, focus, etc. When you give feedback is when you're 25 games into Super Rugby, you paid your school fees for 4 years or 3 years, and you can say, listen, I hear what you're saying. Do you mind if we tweak that? Because I don't feel that comfortable. So the generation early on probably just took orders, and you could just give orders, and they were comfortable with not getting feedback and saying, okay, you want me to do that? Boom, I'm on point. This generation is very curious, which is good. And I think the upside of this current generation is they're curious and they ask questions without fear. Sometimes they ask too much too soon at times too. And it's like, okay, cool, I get you. Let's get this under our belt, get a feel for it. And then what do you think we modify it later? And then like, okay, cool. So then they're not shy to be interactive, which, listen, that's brilliant because when you're in England, the challenge of knowledge is there. And it's good because counter arguments make you rethink what you're thinking, but then you can also learn from them in the sense that you learn something from a nuance in a question, but then you put it back on them and say, that's really interesting. Why would you say that? Why would you say that? Talk me through that. And then they don't have the depth to talk it through and they go, oh, actually, that's a dumb idea. So it's not a dumb idea, but maybe you should have thought it through a bit deeper. Or they've got an excellent point. You go, listen, I really didn't think about that. And give them the credit because that grows the relationship. Say, wow, man, you added another layer to that. Let's try that. No problems. So I think first gen, just do what you're told. Second gen, or next, this gen now, I want to contribute. Let me help you. It's like, okay, cool. Let's go.
That's brilliant. Omar, where did you get that from, from in terms of the note taking and everything like that? Did you see that? Was that an example? Was that modeled, that behavior modeled to you? Or was it always just that work ethic from when you wor a kid from necessity?
Necessity. It's instinct not to be behind. I want to be the best. I don't want to be stupid. I want to be competent and I want to have answers. So I'm just hyper-focused. Maybe it's from my upbringing, hyper-vigilance, always worried about what's going on. When you grow up in a tumultuous sort of situation, you're always hyper-vigilant. That's probably maybe part of it. You know, we were in a rough and tumble situation where there was bullying, there was guys who were pretty intense. So you're always aware of your surroundings, you're always like on point with what you're doing. So maybe by default, that just made me, okay, cool. If I'm not on point, I'm going to get sorted out. So let me make sure I'm on point. I still made tons of mistakes. Don't get me wrong. There's no taking, didn't save my butt, but it's just start point.
Yeah. I mean, that's life, isn't it? But I guess my follow-up question to that was, because if I'm not mistaken, then that you did a lot of MMA, didn't you, prior to getting into, you know, was that you started, what age did you start? And I guess my question is, did you find MMA was an outlet for you for that because you were that way inclined, or did you become more diligent and focused and disciplined and everything like that because of the MMA?
So MMA was started later because MMA only came about later. So I've done MMA for a super long time, from around 22, 23 years old. But when I was young, I did karate and that, which gives you a nice form of athleticism. It makes you really elastic and explosive, but you can't fight with that. You can't fight. And when we moved to Joburg, I was naive, so I got beaten up a lot. And so guys would be like, Omar is, because in South Africa, Omar means grandma. It means there's type of biscuit, Omar rusks, bro, as you know, Guthrie, Omar washing powder. And oh, Omar, what a dumb name, Bosh. And they clapped me, and, you know, and like, I didn't know what to do. I was naive. It's almost street fighting style. Like, as you're talking still, you go, what have I done? Oh, shut up, boom, you know. And so I had to wisen up. And after I took a few big beatings, there was some Portuguese and Italian mates of mine that said, listen, there's a gym where they teach a bit of boxing, and I think you should wisen up. But basically, a couple of guys took me under their wing, started to learn to box, started teaching me about distance. If a guy comes forward, you say, hey, what do you want? Stay back. What do you want to say? You know, and I had to wisen up. And so karate didn't work. Did a bit of judo. Judo is dangerous, but I had to learn to like throw down. And then I just got obsessed with finding the best arts. I did wrestling, then I did grappling, then I did boxing, then I did Thai boxing. And eventually, when MMA came out with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I knew Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is going to protect me on the ground. Banging upstairs is going to help me. And then I brought the MMA thing to life. And I just started traveling, learning MMA wherever I could. Just got out of South Africa because there was nowhere to learn it. And I traveled to Holland and do Thai boxing. I'd go to France and do grappling and judo and then MMA, and just became part of me. And then I just loved it. I was good at it. I was pretty good at it.
It's amazing. And that led, was for you, was that a natural lead into the rugby then, in terms of the breakdown, the contact area, everything, the tap?
Absolutely.
And was that just a natural transition for you? Yeah.
Yeah. It just really just functionally just transferred massively. Yeah.
I wanna just elaborate more, because I can see Benny's keen. He wants to geek out on defensive systems, and he gets stuck in.
You love
I'm joking. Don't unfollow me on Instagram, please. Don't do that.
Bro, you're going for the jugular tonight, man.
My point.
Don't show guys, but it's all good.
No,
hey, there's no worse than it. It's all good.
You know what interests me? You know, Mo, you're talking about back then, and what I liked is there was a word that came in where you said obsessed. You know, obsessed with the different fighting styles. You wanted to learn. You wanted to create your arsenal. And I think that's important as well for a rugby player, to create your arsenal, create your tool set, your toolbox. You need to be able to use the right tool at certain times. But what I like about MMA, because, I mean, maybe it's not a true story or anything, but I recently watched a story on Netflix called The Cage on MMA. I don't know if you saw that. But what I liked about it, yeah, so what I liked about it, this youngster, he was like not an MMA fighter yet, and he got this one shot in and he smashed this guy. The video went viral. I don't want to give the whole story away, but there came a point he had to step into the cage, and in that stage it was an unlawful fight, and his coaches said to him, you need to make a choice. Either you step away from fighting and you do something else with your life, but you step in the cage, you either win or you die. And you know, that type of thing, it kind of like, yes, like that's the type of spirit, you know, it's not that bad in rugby, but is there something in M&A which you share in your coaching principles? Obviously, you're a defensive specialist, defensive coach, you're passionate about it. Is there something from M&A, not just the contact side of it, but the mindset out of it that you've transferred into your coaching?
Yeah, I think it's the diligence side, because first of all, you always got squeaky bum, because you know it's one-on-one in a fight. It's just you. You should watch Rickson Gracie. It's called Choke. Rickson Gracie is the godfather of this stuff, mate. Watch Choke with Rickson Gracie. It'll blow your mind. And it's real. It's not a movie. It's like they follow him in Japan. fighting in front of 60,000 people in no rules fights against guys massively bigger than him. His brother was Royce Gracie, who's choked everyone out in the UFC, and they're a very famous family. That's gave me my inspiration. And his thing of honor, respect, self-control, diligence. I mean, he's a killer. He was a killer, mate. You have to watch it. But the lesson, the mental lesson learned is that you have to have the self-awareness to know what your weaknesses are and embrace them. Because you have to say, listen, maybe I don't have good ground and pound. Maybe my stand-up's not so good, whatever the case is. But you embrace those weaknesses, you work on them. And then you embrace that you have to be humble, that you don't know everything. And the moment you get comfortable, you can get, annihilated. So when you do drills, you appreciate that every drill could save your life in the cage from being choked out, knocked out. You don't cut corners when you know it's just you and there's no escape. You're either going to tap out, get choked out, get knocked out. And you know those consequences could be there for you. So the mindset is complete focus, complete buy-in, complete reality check that if it's only going to hurt you if you miss a run, if you're going to miss your power endurance session, if you're going to miss your sparring and you cop out because someone, gave you a nice shot and you feel like, oh, my liver doesn't feel great, I'm just going to sit out a bit extra. You drop out 2 rounds when you shouldn't. You know that consequence is coming for you. You know that karma is coming for you. So I think that the transmittance of accountability in real time, you feel it when you fight, mate. You feel it. You can hide in rugby sometimes. You can. You'll get caught out eventually in rugby, but not as fast as MMA.
You're on a roll, G. No, the funny thing is, I obviously love D, but I'm just curious, I always am, and I'm always curious with whatever people do, if they've had mastery or if they focused on something. And I think you can sometimes tell, whether that's them playing the guitar or you go and see a musician and you suddenly go, and you're blown away by that. But yeah, I could geek out on this, G, because I actually, as a player, I recognized I wanted to be better. And I went to a place, you might know, Omar, London, Shoot Fighters in London,
Yes, I do. I know them from back in the day because the French guys used to go train there. Loic Boya and all the guys used to train.
Yeah, so
they were a brilliant club.
Yeah, it was tough. Yeah, so I was one of the first guys to go down there with a guy called Paul Ovens, who was like the wrestling coach, and so it was about my second session. I found myself with these guys, and they were all the good strikers, but then we were doing the wrestling together, and I was just there because I was just trying to get better at that contact stuff and etc. etc. Yeah, and it was knackering. And my conditioning, I wish I'd done it years earlier. My conditioning went through the roof. I'd never been so tired in my life, like a 2.5 hour session, but I could, it would look like I'd been in the shower with my kit on. It was just so hard, but also just that, just to work and the, being able to, just deal with different situations. It was amazing. I loved it.
No,
so you're right. The Dimitriades brothers. Yeah, they were hard boys. Yeah, it was. I remember one time it was. I just suddenly heard this. Yeah, nothing above the head in the warm up, and I was like, huh?
I never got down
trouble,
but they were notorious. The French boys I used to train with used to always go there.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. With the M&A, coming from into the contact skills, you're talking now about your functional conditioning, Ben. We actually see a lot of players today are struggling, to get low and get into those positions. And I've noticed as well with a lot of the videos that you share on social media, one of your defensive drills, a lot of groundwork, a lot of movement on the ground. What is the main reason for that? Why do you think rugby players today, and this is my opinion, are lacking so much mobility? What is the massive change you think that has taken place?
I think they've always lacked mobility, Guthrie, to be honest. Like, I think the reason I had the gap in sort of functional defensive syllabus that I built was rugby players get into the gym, they're doing like powerlifting, they're doing strength training, and it's all like linear and there's no multiple directional pound for pound strength or like elasticity or mobility in their hips because they just get in the gym, they lift, they want to get big, they want to feel solid front on with what they're lifting. But there's no reason for them to change levels, to get up and off the ground, to change angles, to be explosive in different directions. No one brings that through in them naturally. And when you start lifting heavy and you're very strong and you're solid, you're not going to feel like going down to the ground because your nervous system's trained like, bosh, we go in this direction and we go in that direction, and that's what we do. Now you're telling me go down. And it's like, oh, that feels like a far way down. And it feels like I'm a bag of bricks going down. So it's not easy when you don't incorporate it. And to incorporate it initially, the guys feel it. If I ask the guys to do literally 90 seconds of functional explosive mobility, mate, I promise you, they look like they're going to have a heart attack. And these are fit guys who can run for days and lift for days. Like literally, you can't imagine it. It's like unreal. They're not used to carrying their own body weight. No, it's just how it is. I just think it's not in the culture training. Sorry, it's not in the culture.
No, for sure. And I experienced that actually after my career as well. And, I was doing all these high intensity body weight training movements, and it was very interesting. One of my favorite movements, which I discovered, was a kick sit twist, where you got on.
Yeah, I see. I see you always do it. That's a good one.
Like crazy. And, I would take some of I remember when I was coaching the academy boys here in La Rochelle, I would actually incorporate that into our contact skills, and, just cutting their breathing rhythm, getting lactic all over the body. And I'll tell you this, the impact it had on us back then, we weren't winning a lot of games, but I can tell you this, our boys, they got stuck into that fight, and I definitely think it's a massive, not just mobility, but functional movement, being able to generate power through movement. It's something which players really undervalue. But
yeah,
Omar, my man, we skipped a few steps, and you touch base in terms of how you started coaching. But in order to get, there's a lot of, and I'm speaking to a lot of amateur coaches, like teachers. I was just listening to a podcast the other day on the Behind the Rack podcast from Jean de Jong. It was quite cool listening to Jake White. He was 40 years old when he became the Springbok coach, 43 when they won the freaking World Cup. How ridiculous is that? He was a school teacher. And, he eventually got into the box setup, cutting tape, and he just got that opportunity. And it's like, it's amazing. He never even coached at professional level before the box. Oh, maybe obviously at the Brumbies before that. But what I want you to share is how did you get into professional coaching? What happened? I know you were nickel and diming, you were working hard, you had your own businesses, restaurants, etc. But I mean, at some stage, that leap to stop what you're doing, you said, okay, I'm going into coaching. How did that happen? And what advice can you give to our younger coaches or experienced coaches that want to make that leap into professional coaching?
Well, a few things. It's funny you mentioned Jake, because Jake was like my hero, because he came out of sort of similar, like where I lived in Joburg. He went to Jeppe. I was down the road in Kensington. His whole story about he sold cars and then he got into the game and he had a knack for it and all that stuff. And I really always admired Jake. So it's funny you say that. I actually was watching a Super Sport roundup when they showed the Springboks and they were showing clear outs, and the guys were coming to the clear outs, flopping on top and just trying to flop guys over using power with no level change, no levers, no follow through. And I said, shit, I'm sure my drills will work for that. These guys, look, they're at the highest level. They don't look like they can clear out properly. That actually occurred to me at that time. But I banged on doors. I can't remember the name of the guy who was at the Stormers before Rassie. What was his name? The big bald-headed guy. It just eludes me as I'm on the call now. What was his name, mate? What was his name?
Anyway, it wasn't me. I was still playing.
No. I'll remember now. But Greg Hector was the conditioning guy at Western Province, and that was we're talking early days, mate, 2002, 2003. And I said to Greg, I've got some stuff with functional explosive mobility for rugby players, tackle tech, power endurance, etc. I think it's going to really work, get their nervous system active, blah, blah, blah. And he said, come do a demo. And my brother and I took some stuff down. We waited for 2 hours for training to be over. First it was by the brewery, and we did a demo. There was some rough and tumble. Scott Berger was a junior, was a baby, then coming through, and as this next up and coming killer. We did drills, and Greg was crazy about it. And the coach at the time said, yeah, I like it, but it's not for us for now. And then we left it for a while. Then Greg got us in again, and they were training at Rondebosch, and he said, no, not again. And they said no again. And then I went down again. They were training at Villages. I did one more demo. The players who did the demo actually enjoyed it. We were doing some counter-rucking, some choke tackles. And he resisted again. And Greg was like, I really think this could work. And I said, I think it'll work, but they resisted again. Be that as it may, I'm training for an MMA fight, and Alan Temple-Jones is the conditioning coach for the Sevens. We're training at Sports Science Centre in Cape Town. I used to pay for my own conditioning back then. I actually started with Grant Compton, who was a biokinestist that did the Proteus. I used to pay back then, man, I was like £70 a session, 5 days a week. So they put me on periodization, weight training programs, and they used to train me, man. I used to spar in the morning. that I used to train with him in the evening, train conditioning with him in the morning, spar in the evening. I was training for a fight and I needed to cut weight for the first time. And Alan was taking me through my paces. It was skipping, it was functional circuits, it was running on the track. And he said to me, "Oh, you move like you devastatingly. Like, I can't believe like how you're moving and stuff and how strong you are for your size. Have you thought of transferring the stuff for rugby?" And I said, "Yes, I have. And I've been trying for a long time." He goes, "The Springbok Sevens, we're struggling. Physicality, we got nothing. We can't keep up with the Islanders. We're getting smashed or like bottom of the rung in everything. Physicality, stats-wise, we can't keep up. Can you come talk to Paul Tree? He's got a karate guy coming. He's got a wrestler coming in. Why don't you come demo something?" I went and demoed to Paul Tree. There's a 5-10 minute thing. He just said, "Hey, you're in. I want you here next week."
Awesome.
And just from then, just demoing the stuff, got stuck in with the boys. I used to actually get stuck in with them physically too. And we just went from strength to strength on defense. And we started smashing guys. And the word got around that I could do a decent job. Rasmus got me in, said, "Can we have a chat?" Pulled up a chair. I'll never forget. He pulled the chair like backwards and just said, I think he called me ninja or something like that. I said, "Okay, give me your shit, ninja." Sharp Ninov is there. Greg Hector's there. And I said, "Nervous system this, nervous system that, pound for pound strength, perception, know where you are, blah, blah, blah." He said, yeah, that's nice. Let's get outside, come show us. And I had Inzu and Eli Stick and Paul Skuman, Mario Skuman, who they call him Shoes, for the demo. And Rusty was like, "What are you Oaks doing?" I said, "No, I've got a nickname, which I don't want to say out loud, yeah." But Oaks is, we backed Oaks to do a bit of damage, yeah. Did a demo for 10 minutes. He said, "Come inside." He said, "I want you to join us. How much do you want to get paid?" And this is quite a notorious story, which I've only told once before. I said, I had no clue. I was getting something like 1,000 Rand from the Springbok Sevens, which didn't even cover my petrol to Stellenbosch. I was waking up 4:30 to get to Stellenbosch at 6 a.m. to take a session. I got 3 fines on the way there 1 month. I couldn't even pay my bills, man. I didn't have enough money to pay my bills. And I said to Rusty, "I don't know." He said, "You must know." And I said, "I really don't know. Can I think about it?" He said, "Mate, do you want to work for the Stormers or not?" I said, "I do." Right?
No pressure.
And I just said a ridiculous figure. I just said like 10 times what I was getting from the Springbok Sevens, even more, I think 15 times. And he just went, Greg was the conditioning coach, said, "You got money in your budget?" Jacques had a budget for conditioning. He said, "Do you think you got money in your budget?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, cool. We're going to send you a contract. You're in. Thank you." Yeah. And then he got hold of me the next week and explained to me what he wanted me to do, which was take the tight 5, like that needed extra explosive collision training. And they were going to come in way before in preseason than anyone else. And I took groups of 5 and 6, and Yanni Shamangi, Peter Myberg, Brock Harris, those. Yeah, bro. And they used to make me fight these guys. These guys always wanted to fight with me all the time. And that's where we went from there, mate. And just grew from strength to strength. Learned my trade there in Burton.
And some negotiation tips as well.
Man, we're not sure. Go for gold. I lie to you. I was more than that because, I don't want to, obviously his time's passed so far, so it wouldn't make a difference. I was getting $1,000 a month. I went for 30,000 and he said yes. And I'll never forget, Rob Wagner didn't enjoy it because he signed my contract with me. And he said, Rob Wagner said, "Oh, Rusty obviously believes in you a lot. This is quite a lot of money." And he begrudgingly gave me the contract to sign. And I was like, "Oh, I think I did pretty well." I've never told anyone that story before. But Wagner, every time he saw me, he was like, "This guy, this is this fucking guy. God, goodness sake."
Mate. Well, it's been validated now, hasn't it? You've coached all over the world now, and you've done an amazing job. And people just want to take you wherever they go. I mean, one of the things I'd forgotten that you were in Italy. Correct me if I'm wrong. Were you there with Brendan? Is that
Nick Mallet? No, way before Brendan. Brendan came after.
So what year was that, Omar?
So it was end of 2010. I did the November tests. So we made the Currie Cup finals with 3 teams because I used to do under 19s, 20, and the senior team. We played Sharks away. We lost in the final. We won under 19, under 20 Currie Cup, and we lost with the main team. But what happened was Nick needed to win his tests in November. Then he was struggling, and he came down to a captain's run and a training session. I presented something on a captain's run and did a session, and he said to Dobbo and some guys, said, "Who's this little dude? I like what he's about. Can I meet him?" And they organized a coffee. And when a coffee said, "Listen, mate, like I believe you can get guys up to speed very quickly on defense, get them smashing and stuff. He's telling guys, we'll move around. I need to win tests. When it up to speed. Do you think you can help?" And I said, "Well, I need to see the footage." He sent me a couple of games, looked at the footage, said, I can help. He said, "I'll give you 10 days before we play our first tests. can you come straight off the Currie Cup final? Got straight off the field onto a plane, went across to Nick, and we beat Fiji for the first time. We beat Argentina, and then we lost to Australia. And he just said, I want to sign you permanently for 2 years or 3 years or whatever it was. So we did a couple of Six Nations, did a Senior World Cup in New Zealand in 2011. And then he left, and Jacques Brunel came in. I did another year, and then I left.
Yeah. I'd love to know, I mean, what was that experience like? Did you just find they were like sponges, or was, even though the rugby level might not have been as high as before, but they were like sponges, or what was it like for you? Did you have to adapt what you were doing? How did you find it?
Well, obviously the language barrier was there, but what's quite nice is, look, it's always daunting coming into a new environment in the sense that, remember, you have to gain trust really quickly. And there's like a formula that I used to try and do that, but it's not easy. Remember, you're the guest in the house. And you're coming in and you've got 45 eyes on you and you've got 10 staff who are checking you out, and now you can't speak Italian and they have to translate. So I was fortunate that I can get stuck in physically in the sense that, like, I can communicate a technique, then I can do it explosively, and I can go, let's go, what do you think? And they go like, what's the language of rugby? Up, down, sprawl, roll, hit, bang, fold, take off, retreat. And I'm doing it, then taking them with me. That helped. Initially, everyone's like, oh, what do you want from me? Because a lot of the training is very demanding. I demand a lot from boys when they come in, and I try and transform them very quickly. So the input from me is a lot and the demands are high. So initially everyone's like, well, what the hell do you want from me? And then boom, once they see the benefits, then they continue. So they were sponges, but initially there's always resistance to training freaking hard, isn't there?
Omar, you just touched on something there, you just mentioned that when you're coming to a team, they really got their culture set, you got to earn trust. And, you've been fortunate, you've been coaching with different teams. You've coached in France as well. And what would you say for any coach? And because you might get a coach, you're starting for the first time. I remember when I started out as a coach, whether it was in Pro D2 or National, and eventually in top 14, you walk into this room, got some high profile players there. But what is the advice you can give to coaches in terms of to connect with a player? Players are different. They all got different profiles. But what is your recipe? Because I've noticed everywhere you go, that energy comes through every single time. It comes through. A lot of people tell me I'm crazy. I say you're crazy too. But yeah, you can feel that vibes. You can feel that energy, and you can feel that passion. Do you have a recipe? Well, something that you follow? I know it might be different with each, but is there some basic steps that you follow that you can share with our audience?
Yeah, I think first of all, you have to be, if you want a detailed player, you have to be a detailed coach. If you want a hardworking player, you have to be a hardworking coach. So what I do is, imagine, Ben, I'm going to coach you, right? And I know I'm coming to your team. I will do so much homework on you. It's ridiculous, but I'm not going to tell you, oh, I've done so much homework on you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it incidental. So we'll watch, for example, 175 tackles made, missed, turnovers forced, system errors from scrums and line out. Your superpower, maybe from a scrum or line out, maybe cutting passing lanes, doing whatever you do, amount of minutes played. What I think I'd work on with you, what I think your mentality seems like, and I'll build a huge picture, and I'll do that for everyone on the team. So if the team made 4,750 tackles, I will watch every single tackle of every single guy, and I'll break it down into categories. And then what I do is I make everyone a movie of his highlights of what he does well and his work ons, and I use animation on that. And then, but I don't just present it to them. I keep that in the kit bag. That's in my laptop, right? And then I ask for a one-on-one meeting, and in the one-on-one meeting, I'm just curious and I take in as much information as I can. And while I'm speaking to them, I'm typing, and I say, please don't think I'm rude. I'm listening to you, but I'm going to type a little bit, or I use my iPad Pro. And I ask them, where are you from? What are you about? What do you value most? When you've had your best games, what do you do? When you've had your worst games, how have you felt? What would you work on your defense? If you never had a defense coach, who would you seek out? Why would you seek them out? And I ask a lot of questions. And then I summarize what they've told me. And I say, look, it feels like you said this to me, that your person values honesty, kindness, and hard work. So if you were held accountable, would you say, be honest? It would be fair to say that I could be honest with you because you value honesty. And honesty is what? Honesty is doing what you said you will do, no matter what. So do you hold yourself to those standards? And I start to build that picture. And then I say, look, I explain to them after they've spoken for ages, probably 30, 40 minutes. I say, look, my coaching style is I take your gift and I see your perception of your game and your gift. And I take my perception of your game and your gift. And we make a plan together and we hold hands all the way up the mountain. And at the top of the mountain, we go, how do you think we did? We built this plan together. Where do you think we're at? Do you think that's a good plan? You say, cool. So I've got a couple of things on your game. I actually agree with what you've said. Let's watch a bit of film. Let's see what you think. And he sees this movie come up, then your face, your stats, your facts, this animation video, and he thinks, whoa, this guy was like paying attention. Number one, he listened to every word I said for 40 minutes. Number two, he had already built a profile on me. He watched 175 tackles and made them succinct into 15. Made missed dominant, for example, system error or two, a couple of things on work rate. And then it's like, bosh, he gets his copy on his phone with the notes I just made. And we go, can we commit to the next 3 weeks? This is going to be the plan. What do you think? And the guy's like, yeah, for sure. And we've connected with a plan. So I think what builds trust is high-level technical details, understanding the person in front of you, and then committing to a plan that suits everyone, not just you.
That's beautiful. I love the way you codified that. That's brilliant. Really, really clear. That clarity is amazing. Love it. It must give a lot of confidence to players and coaches. You know, when you have that clarity, it just builds that trust, that confidence as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it seems to work. Yeah, I've been quite lucky that the formula works pretty well. But yeah, thank you, Ben. You're very kind.
Ben, I can see you itching and you're starting to fidget a bit. I know you want to start going into the defenses and line speed, jackals. Go for it, Ben.
Ben, do you love defense that much? Is that true? I'm going to be really fond of you too, if that's true.
No,
I'm going to say one thing before you get...
He's just the blessing, I think, yeah. So
one thing, John McFarland, he used to be our defensive coach at the Bulls back in the day.
I know, John.
For us, it was simple.
Yeah.
The Victoria boys, you just say, everybody's got a plan until they got hit. So, but I'm going to leave you.
Yeah, get punched in the face. Yeah, everyone's got a plan until they get blitzed.
Mike Tyson. Go on, G, you got to follow up?
No, it's you, man. This is your can of worms. You can get out the fishing rod. You can catch a big fish. You go for it, man.
No, I find it fascinating. I love the way Omar codified that, and I find it. I guess as a coach, I find it's your question earlier, G, about the generations.
Yeah.
For me, I was with the Bulls last July, but working with the under-21s mostly, and working with the coaches, coaching the coaches, and my coaching journeys. I've gone from doing a lot of that defense stuff to more of the attack, having spent, time with Villepreux and spending time in France 10 years ago, et cetera, et cetera. So I was mostly doing that. But what I always find interesting is when I coach in other countries and then I go back to South Africa, and I'm not sure it's so much about the time, G, and the generations, but I find it's different coaching the guys here. I find in the UK, for example, they're a bit more... They expect there's not just curious doesn't do it justice, but I think I've got a couple of theories about it, but I think a lot of the guys, they're so polite and so well mannered and brought up in some amazing schools in SA to generalize. So they're yes coach, yes no coach, and so it's a lot of tell, or it used to be a lot more tell and a lot less questions from them, so it's less of a dialogue. It was more adult child in the relationship. I used to find it's progressed a lot, but Omar, you've coached all over the place. How have you found that? Have you found that? Have you had similar findings as well?
Yeah, it's definitely what you're saying there. I mean, like when I was coaching at the Sharks, you had the Dupier brothers, Philip van der Walt, Marcel Coetzee, these type of guys. They call you coachy. Like it's just they just want to do what they're told, and they're amazing boys, and they grow really quick, and they were animals, mate. Like tough, and so committed. The UK is different. The UK it's curious. Ask another question, challenge a little bit. But I feel that when you're clear and you've got good details, the challenge is different. It's more curious. Ask another question. If you seem flaky, they're going to ask you 100 questions so they beat holes in the thing. But I agree with you. They don't see it as an insult to you or themselves, or they're being disrespectful if they ask a question when they're curious. Whereas in probably South African cultures, like it's a challenge to say, yeah, coach, why would we do that? Or, can we have a different sort of feel to what we're doing and do it a slightly different way? Whereas in Europe, they'll just ask it. They'll just say, is there a different way to do this? Or this has been great the last 4 sessions, but can we add 2 more stations or add a different flow? Well, they'll come to you separately and ask you that, But whereas in South Africa, they probably just feel that wouldn't be respecting you. So I think that still stands a bit,
Yeah, I think it does, and it can be a good thing. It can be quite tricky, can't it? Because you then say to the guys, like, it's up to you. You make a decision. It depends what the scenario is going to be. These are the different permutations. These are, will equip you with this skill set, but so it's interesting. Really interesting. How do you find that, G? Because you've got, I suppose, such a multinational team.
Yeah, it's a bit different, because in our team, you're sitting with Australians, New Zealanders, we got South African, you got French. It's like a blended culture, basically. So it's actually for us, and some of the French boys, sometimes they prefer to be like shouted at, screamed at. But then you got like a guy like Will Skelton, you can't do that. You can't speak to him like that. And our group has evolved, in terms of the way we coach the guys, and we speak in a calm manner. We try to be very mindful. I think that's important in the coaching. I think we've mentioned in the past. I grew up like that. I got told something, I would do it. I would hardly question it. But now today, which is great, is you're having players that actually want to evolve in the game. It's completely different. And the players today compared to in the past, they have to deal with so much more. That's something we don't always talk about. But when I was still playing in my prime, like social media just started Facebook. I was like just liking photos and just connecting with mates and have a few drinks with them. I remember in 2009, got smashed against the Leicester Tigers. I went into hiding for 2 weeks, traveling between London and Paris, just getting on the bus, trying to avoid all media. But there was no social media. But now today, I think why the players are also asking these questions is because they make. I shared this with Ben, I think, the other night. One of my younger props in the academy team, he got pumped in a scrum. And the opposition team took that clip and turned it into a TikTok with music and everything. And it went viral. Almost got 1 million.
Horrendous. That's horrendous.
19 years old.
Imagine what that does to self-esteem, Lord's sake.
Yeah. So, I think the world we're living in and where we're coaching is completely different. It's almost like, I think the pressure for them is so much more. There's the social pressure, there's the social media pressure, there's the pressure to perform. And you're actually seeing more and more rugby players that are in a way struggling, I think. And that's something we don't always talk about, the mental health of the players and even the mental health of the coaches. I don't know what's your take on that, Omar.
Yeah, look, I think it's a massive factor. You think about the game highlights alone. I mean, that training highlights are horrendous, but you think about the game highlights on both sides. So the guy that does a big show and go, drops it on his toe, picks it up, does a flick and scores. The guy who slipped in front of him, he's in that clip, and it just goes 10 minutes after half time, and it happened in the first half. It's all over Twitter. It's all over Instagram. Premiership Rugby are putting the highlight, or if it happened in top 14, it's like live highlights. And the guy who slipped, who feels like a douchebag, he's getting the 50,000 views by the time the game's over. And the guy who scored it is like the kudos of, beat this guy, did no look offload, and he feels like $1 million. But the next week, when he gets smashed in a tackle and they're showing the highlight of how he got jammed from the outside and got KO'd, that's going to be on social media for 100,000 hits and be, put on every platform for 5 days. So it's not easy because you live and die by the sword. They pump your tires. Next minute, someone takes the air out the tires just as quick.
Yeah.
And I think it's daunting. I think guys think about it. They think, wow, I stuffed that up and a lot of people saw it. I hope that does not go viral. And when they do something great, they go, I hope that goes viral. But then you could be the hero now and then be the villain later. It's not easy. I wouldn't want to be them. Not easy.
I'm going to geek out here because I've gave that opportunity to Ben and didn't want to take it. I was thinking he was holding back there. You're a defensive specialist. If we don't speak about this, we'll be doing you injustice and also to our audience, defense. That's the new attack in the modern day game, So if you can just maybe a few keynotes, frame it for the coaches out there, the players, what's the goal of having a decent defensive system? And what are the key principles to having an effective and efficient defense? I know it's very tough, which I'm asking you, but just if you can maybe give like a brief bullet point or maybe share a bit of your philosophy with the audience.
Well, I think everyone talks about getting the ball back as fast as you can. I think that's obviously the goal. You want the ball back as fast as you can. I think the style of which you do it is like it's got to build like pride and it's got to build a confidence in the team. So getting the ball back quickly because you're aggressive, you know the goal, you understand everything, you're on the same page, you're aligned, and you just you're putting teams to the sword because you've got this style that people know is coming and they almost can't stop it. I think that's like my philosophy sort of aligns with that is understand clearly what we want to achieve. And I think you said, defense is the new modern attack in the sense that I agree with you that attack is always looking for gaps to exploit the defense. Do they overfold? Do they underfold? Is the vacuum open? Where does the 9 stand? Can you come back to the short side? All these things. And what I started to do is the last few years is say, well, how can we attack at its source? For example, let's look at the nuance of their ball players. When a guy pulls back the ball, is there a no-look puller backer? How much pressure does he put on a foot? Does he go 45 and then pull? The guy who's tucked, how tucked is he? The mechanics of their move, do they do it slightly wider in a rectangle? Do they do it slightly coming tighter into a triangle? And then how can we take away the rhythm of that move? Can we change our setup? Like in NFL, they've got the shotgun setup, they've got a more classic setup. So I'm always looking for ways with my players to attack the attack in different setups. So they put a +1 on a 6+1, we stack tighter, and we try and kill that playmaker as trying to make that move unfold. And then they stand with a 9 there in a certain way, and we only give them the front. We'll stand a bit more classically and we'll create an ambush. So I think defense is there to get the ball back, but you've got to make it exciting. You've got to play in scenarios. And I think you've got to do what attack does, which attack gets excited about. Speed execution, square at the line, 1-3-3-1 morphs into 1-3-2-1-1, and so on and so forth. And sometimes they go to the coast and they come back in 2-4-2 and excited about that. I want guys philosophically to be excited about defense, attacking the attack. And blitz, people enjoy it and they go, oh, when they score try and it's black and white and you miss a read, they go, oh, that was terrible. Blitz is too complicated. It's not too complicated. If you've got the conditioning, you've got the readability, you've got the frameworks, you'll get better and better at it. And I was saying to Jim, I was on Jim Hamilton's show and they were saying, how do you curb this? I said, you stick by it. The 1-3-3-1 Guthrie, bro, are you a prop, mate? You don't understand. When 1-3-3-1 was spoken about and they said, a prop's going to catch the ball and he's going to look at another dude and then give him the ball, mate. People were like, are you insane? No one's going to do that.
Keep the props break the wall.
The props even said, do you think I'm going to pass? Do you think I'm an idiot? Now, I've said to Jim, you watch the guys training, the props are doing more pullback passes and squaring up at the line than they're doing scrums, man. And so they stuck by it. So a guy can go right at the line, suck you in, and pull back at the last second so convincingly. It's scary. So with blitz, it's the same thing. Initially, jamming a receiver, taking a passing lane, blitzing on the short side, even though you're 2 versus 4. There's a method to all that. And yes, it's scary in the beginning, but you will get better. And I'm saying go faster, read in real time, understand your role. Who do I take? How do I take them? What are the mechanics? Do your homework. And then let's create these ambushes. Don't go, let's go back to square drift and be sure and then make big tackles and then defend for 15 phases and lose energy. No, stay on the track. It'll come. Look at attack. Attack is lethal because no one is letting go of the ball anymore. Running exit, quick taps, quick throws. The skill level's up here. Why can't defense catch up like it? They can. But you've got to believe in it. You've got to have the passion in it. And then you've got to create the skill level around those complicated reads and assessments.
I love that. That's awesome. Omar, can we jump? Because we've got people that follow us and they're amateur players. There's younger players, kids. I had a chat with a parent today. Son is a bit fearful of contact. And we've got some of those amateur players that obviously just want to level up. Are there a couple of things that you could advise, generic stuff that you would advise to anybody, either to get confidence or just that they can start working on? You've talked about level change, for example, tonight. Are there some key things that you could, without seeing the individual, that you could just give us a framework maybe?
Yeah, I think young kids should go to like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes or wrestling classes once or twice a week. They're going to do the forward rolls, the backward rolls, the safe landing, the animal walks, or the animal crawls. You're going to do safe sort of pummeling and grappling where you feel the proprioception, could feel the body weight, and you get a sensation and sensibility around being in contact with someone else. That's always going to help you. Do that in the off season. Do that in the preseason. Even 6, 8, 10, 12-year-olds, 16-year-olds, they all benefit from that. There's no question about it. And they'll feel the transfer. They will, because, initially they're going to be all dopey and upright and gangly and fall over themselves. And eventually they're going to feel this incredible sensibility around moving at different angles and staying connected to the person they are about to take down, or when they land on the floor, getting back on their feet quickly. They'll feel that because those drills give you that. I'd say when you've got time to train, even if you've got any functional space, is do functional stuff. If you've got a mate, do things where it's slamming a medicine ball, sprawl, roll, get up, hit the shield, come back, do a burpee, 3 press-ups, grapple a bit, mix it up into that power endurance functional stuff. And don't be scared to go, I don't know, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, 3 rounds of that stuff. And then mix it up between tackle, jackal, and anaerobic running. Your game will just fly up, because when you got conditioning, you got no fear. It's like a fighter. If I've got limited conditioning, I'm telling you, I'm going to be fearful. But when you do those sort of functional exercises and stuff, you get a confidence. I think going to those classes helps you tremendously off-season and pre-season.
That was brilliant. Great question, my man. I think that's great to how we can help youngsters to build confidence. I think that's some really great advice. We can go on for ages, Omar, and I know you're a very busy man. You got lots to do. And, when I look at these big podcasts of Joe Rogan, all these guys, they're going for hours. I can understand why. I want to keep on talking, but we need to come to the end. But before I give the closing over to Ben, I'd just like to ask you this question, because on this podcast, we are passionate about resilience. That's something which we need. My word for 2025 is grit, being consistent in your efforts, and the result will take care of yourself. Effort combined with talent allows you to develop a skill. Skill with effort allows you to master that skill set or achieve your desired goal. But what I would like to ask you, in your mind, what is your definition of resilience, and how can players or coaches out there build it?
My definition of resilience probably is don't take failure and not getting what you want immediately personally. To say, I deal with truths and realities. The reality is you can't always be on top. The truth is you eventually get back on top. And resilience is understanding truths and realities. When you're feeling down and like, am I really the best? I'm not sure I can do this. To say, what is reality? The reality is not everyone's going to be perfect all the time and win all the time. What's the truth? The truth is if I stick at it and get my processes right and find the right people to plug into, I'll get on top again. And then just know what you want, know what you're going to get out of it. And that backs up that process. So truths and realities, understanding why you're doing it, and then you'll stay resilient. Because at the moment you stop taking that personally, you'll do better. That's my feeling.
How can guys build it? How can players build? What tools are out there that you can share? Because we as coaches say guys are not resilient sometimes. They need to stay in the fight. But how can we develop that? How can players do it?
It's like neuro-linguistic programming. It's like, how does the brain work? You've got your chimp brain. People talk about the chimp brain. If you've read the chimp paradox, it tells you like fight, fright, or freeze. The best way I can explain fight, fright, or freeze is a brown bear walks into a pub where us three are having a beer, right? Now, if you didn't have a chimp to keep you alive, this is what will happen if you only...
Of course, I'm having a Castle Light, just to clarify that.
You're having a Castle Light, I'm having a double vodka. No, kidding, I'm not a big drinker. You're sitting down having this beer and you use your logic brain. So your logic brain goes, oh, that's odd. There's a brown bear walking into the pub. And you go, oh, that's interesting. And by the time you finish your sentence, that bear's got close and he's just flipping eaten you. But your chimp brain, which is your survival brain, says, listen, mate, there's a bear flipping walking in here. Let's go through the checklist. Can we fight this thing? No. Should we freeze? No. Should we flight to get out of here? Yeah, let's get out of here. And you just tell the human to shut up, which is your logic brain, and you get the hell out of it. But the chimp keeps you safe, but he also stuffs you up because your chimp needs a walk. So he gets frustrated. Four game losing streak. What does it say about me? We're an embarrassment. And he overwhelms you. I think to answer your question is, if you have tools to manage the neuroscience in your brain to say, hold on, my chimp's getting excited. He's overwhelmed. He keeps me safe, but he also overwhelms me. Okay, so my pride's getting the better of me. I'm arguing with people. I'm frustrated. What steps can I deal with? I think teach boys and girls, whoever, to have steps to manage their psyche. So if I deal with truths and realities, that's a nice one where you draw up, what is the gap between what I'm feeling and what I want to do and why am I feeling it? And just also give yourself a break. The truth is the reality is you can't always be perfect. The truth is you'll get better and better. These type of tools help people to settle themselves down because when your chimp is excited, I'm not good enough. I don't have the tools. Nobody wants me. I can't win anymore. Those narratives, you need a framework to talk yourself down. And I think psychological mental skills need to be taught.
Beautiful. That's gold. Omar, so many nuggets, and I really appreciate your time. It's been amazing. Thanks for giving up your time and sharing some of this wisdom with us. It's really, really exciting. It's energizing as well. I just a quick one. I was so happy to hear that the bit just before as well, because my youngest son, Daniel, he doesn't play rugby at the moment, but he does BJJ. So he does it with Mauricio Gomez's gym in here. So he's part of the Gracie family as well, isn't he? So
amazing, exactly.
Yeah.
Stop doing it. It's so good for the guy.
Hey,
How old's your boy? How old's he?
He's 10. He's 10. Yeah.
How many kids do you have?
3.
What do you got? How many? What are they, boys and girls or?
Boy, girl, boy. So 18, 16, 10. Yeah. So
Yeah, you're old hand at this stuff, eh? Guthro, what have you got, Guthro? What are you on now? 6 kids.
Hey, man, I've got girl, 20, 16, yeah, and 10.
You also started back at the bottom of the rung.
Another podcast. That's a podcast episode on its own.
Oh, man, I love your wisdom because I haven't got to that level yet.
Lots to learn.
It gives you a different view on coaching, though, doesn't it? I think becoming a parent as well. Suddenly, when I became a parent, I was just like, whoa, I've got such a different, not just the parental element of it and maybe the emotional intelligence element and the empathy, but just other stuff as well.
Oh, no,
I agree with you that, Ben, because, I know we're at the end here now, but that's with my experience working with younger players. Things have evolved, times have changed, parents are divorcing more than before, separated, and players are going through tough times. They don't always come from a strong household. And I could see some players are struggling. And you're talking about that emotional intelligence. Sometimes it's not just the right way, just shouting and screaming at the youngster. And as a parent, this is somewhere like I've got my children. I give everything to my children. I'm willing to go above and beyond. But it doesn't always mean that the player I'm dealing with experience that. So I think that's always something to keep in mind before we just tend to judge players for certain behaviors. What I've picked up from my experience when especially comes to younger players, and this is for coaches that are like academy coaches working with youngsters, just keep in mind that sometimes when players are having poor behavior, it doesn't mean they're just trying to cause shit. There might always be a reason why they're acting out. So we need to keep that in mind. But I think that's a topic we need to deep dive. I know you have a last question, Ben, that you would like to ask Omar before we sign off.
Yeah, Omar, I'd love to know if there's one standout lesson for you that you've learned from the game that you apply to your everyday life, or you would take as a really good rugby to life lesson.
I stand by what I said initially is it's not about you. It's not about you. Be careful of your ego. Your ego always wants to make it about you. Be curious about other people. Ask questions. Be curious. It sounds too easy, but make it about other people and everyone wins. It's too easy to make it about yourself. That I stand by that. That's the biggest. And I honestly think, rugby brings out the best and the worst in you, because when you're excluded in the game in any form, with a coach as a player, you freak out because you want to be in the tribe. But if you want to be in a tribe and always contribute, give back, give more than you take. That's what I've learned.
Nice.
Nice.
Love that.
Omar, my man, thanks for joining us this evening. But before we sign off, you've shared so many great gems and nuggets tonight. If our audience would like to get into touch with you, what is the best way for them to reach out to you? I know you offer a lot of free stuff as well, resources. You also do a lot of mentorships. But what's the best way they can reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram under my full name, Omar, and then underscore Mouneimne, and then underscore again. So Mouneimne. So on Instagram, they could just message me on there, and I'll respond. And I've got a website called whistletowhistle.com. They've got my email on there, which is info@whistletowhistle.com. So I coach defense coaches. I mentor head coaches on leadership, how to set the scene, big picture stuff, technical, tactical. And I've got a lot of courses free and paid for that can up the levels for all levels. Fully animated tutorials narrated by me, and some stuff they can book directly with me. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Awesome stuff. We'll anyway put that in the show notes as well.
Thanks so much.
Get access to that. And for audience, if you enjoyed what we were sharing with you guys tonight, please like, share, and subscribe our channel that we also, especially on social media, on Instagram. Please keep on sharing the message if you like what we're doing. And we would also like to hear, what are your questions? What questions myself and Ben will be doing duo, solo episodes. I don't know what we're going to call it. It's just the two of us. We'll be answering and deep diving into one of your questions. But Omar, my brother, best of luck. I know you got lots of work to do, and thanks for taking time in your busy schedule. It has been unbelievable. Cheers, guys. Have a good evening.